How you doing, everybody? First off, let me apologize for my mic and camera quality. I'm just starting out. Don't really know what I'm doing. Figured there was no point spending a lot of money on high quality stuff until I really know what I'm doing with the stuff I have. Uh, Today, I want to tell you the story of my experience with what people working in college dorms would refer to as a stage 5 clinger. This is a student that gets really attached to staff members or other people in the dorm community and don't leave them alone even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, and unwelcome. Uh, they don't really mean any harm by it. They just need a friend, and you're someone that they feel they can relate to. I never thought I would have this problem, being the unsocial, kind of grumpy person that I was at the time. Still am, most days. But turns out I'm exactly the type of person who has this problem. My senior year of college, I worked in the freshman dorms, and a young woman from a different floor uh, would come and talk to me when I was working the reception desk on the first floor during the night shift. Basically, my job at night was be on the first floor near the entrance in case a resident of that particular hall had a problem, campus police needed to get in the building looking for someone or had questions, or if there was an incident outside to give whoever needed a safe place to be a safe place to be until the situation was over. And one student from a floor that wasn't mine, so I really had no reason to interact with her, didn't really know who she was, would just come talk to me because she had trouble sleeping at first. Then we would talk about whatever show I was watching just to pass the time. And after a couple weeks of this, she started just trying to hang out with me all the time. She'd talk to me in the dining hall. She'd come up to my floor, and I'm like, okay, you just need a friend. You're not weird or strange or scary in any way. You're just a little nerdy and a little socially awkward. Cool. I can relate to that. And then it started turning into she'd show up in the middle of the night on my dorm, in my room, at my door, when I wasn't working the front desk. And at this time, my sleep regularity was inconsistent at best. Uh, Working all night some nights until 7, 8 a.m., and then having class at 9 or 10. So whenever I could get a moment to sleep, I was very protective of it. And she just would not leave me alone. I'd tell her to go away. She wouldn't. She'd even slip past me into my dorm room so that I couldn't shut the door on her, couldn't lock her out. She was already in. And it got to the point where she was keeping the other people on my floor up. If she happened to not be in my room when I got the door shut and locked, which took a lot of speed on my part, she would bang on the door and knock and just not go away, and it was making people on my floor uncomfortable, particularly the people who lived immediately across the hall from me. They were very confused as to why this person was trying so hard to get my attention, and I really didn't have an explanation. Didn't even know her name. I'm gonna call her Amelia just because she needs a name. Anyway, at one point, Amelia had kept me up for 3, 4 days. I think that was my record in college. I used to know how long I could stay up before I started hallucinating. I think it was 4 days. Anyway, she was getting me very close to that edge, to the point where my health was at risk. An emergency room visit may be in the future if she wouldn't leave me alone long enough to sleep. And of course, not going to go to sleep with this person I don't know in my dorm room. And I finally slipped away long enough to text the rest of the staff in the storm, hey, Amelia's not leaving me alone. Uh, can someone from her floor or one of the building supervisors come and chat with her for a bit? I don't think that's going to work, so I'm going to call a friend of mine in the building next door and see if I can sleep at his place. Uh, a couple staff members and the building supervisor said, yeah, well, get her away long enough for you to escape. Uh, and so I quickly packed my things, called my friend Dalton, who lived in the dorm next door, explained the situation. He was kind of already aware of it because she had sort of wiggled her way into our interactions throughout that week or the weeks prior. This whole event took place over the course of maybe a month, maybe two. Uh, so Dalton and pretty much anyone who was in my life at the time was fully aware of what was going on. Maybe a little confused as to what her motives were. I still don't know. Some of us think maybe she had a crush on me. Some of us think that she just had nobody in her life, and I was not threatening enough to scare her off. Likely, to be honest. Uh, so anyway, Dalton and I pack my stuff up and head over to his dorm, which is just literally you could throw a rock out the front door of my building and you'd hit the back door of his building. Like, that's how close we were. Uh, it wasn't uncommon for things to get thrown out of windows and land inside rooms across the way. Impressive as that was. Uh, but as we're about to go into his dorm building, Amelia comes out and is like, wait, wait, wait. And, oh great, what do we do now? She follows us in. She's like, oh, I got a friend who lives in this building. Hold on, let me just go meet them. Well, turns out the friend who lives in this building is us. She follows us into the elevator, just tells us that her friend lives on the same floor as Dalton. We go to Dalton's floor, and suddenly we're in Dalton's room, and Amelia's with us. Like, thought you were gonna go meet a friend. Oh, I am. You guys are my friends. Well, Dalton and I are busy. We got stuff to do. We kind of need some privacy. She's like, oh, I won't bother you guys. Do your homework or play video games or whatever it is you do. And at this point, I'm trying to come up with something. So I'm just stumbling over myself saying, okay, Amelia, you gotta understand, we need to be alone for this. We're and then as I'm trying to come up with something, Dalton just bursts out, we're about to have sex. I look at him, she looks at him, and he just grins because he's proud of himself for coming up with a reason she needs to leave. Dalton's kind of dumb. The lovable kind of dumb, but still dumb. Uh, she goes, sure, good joke. And me, not coming up with a better idea, was like, no, that's exactly why we're here. I didn't want other people to know, which is why he doesn't come to our building. I come here because I don't want people to know, because this is a thing that a lot of people in our area aren't okay with. She's like, sure, prove it. So Dalton and I look at each other, look into each other's eyes, like, okay, what now? And before I go on, got to explain, Dalton and I worked together for about 2 years at this point at a summer camp. And those of you who don't know what life at a summer camp is like, basically, for 3 months out of the year, and in our case, because we were leadership roles, it's more like 6 months because there's a month and a half of planning beforehand and then a month and a half of preparing for the next year afterwards. Uh, Basically, for that portion of the year, you are basically next to this person for 15, 20 hours a day constantly. And when the kids are around, you learn how to communicate nonverbally because there's obviously things kids can't know, either because it's not appropriate for kids, kind of breaks the illusion of we're all one big happy family, or it's a surprise that the kids can't know about till later. And, you know, if you've ever worked with kids, you know that if once they get some information that they're not supposed to have, you can't undo that. So Dalton, the reason I bring that up is because Dalton and I had learned how to communicate non-verbally pretty well, like only a couple hand signals or a few gestures or groans, anything like that. anything that wasn't words, we had kind of learned how to interpret. Not perfectly, of course, but to a point. And uh, what happened at this situation was after Amelia told us to prove that we were a couple, we looked at each other, and on the side that she couldn't see, I winked at him, hoping that he'd interpret that as, oh, Evan's taking the lead here. Because I knew if Dalton took the lead, he would take things significantly farther than I was willing, because that's just what he does. He doesn't half-ass anything. He either overdoes it or it doesn't get done. So I'm taking the lead on this. And also, I'm the one at risk here. He has nothing to lose in this game. Uh, so I'm like, okay, you really want to see us prove it to you? She's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, so I'm like, okay, Dalton, I guess we got to prove this. So I start to take my shirt off, thinking, okay, Dalton's going to take his shirt off. She's going to get real uncomfortable. We might hug each other or something, and she'll leave. And that's all it has to do. I don't even have my shirt over my face yet. I like just over my face. I can't see anything. And all of a sudden, Amelia starts screaming at the top of her lungs, and I hear her pounding on the door. So I get my shirt the rest of the way off because at this point it's easier to take it off than put it back on. And Dalton is completely naked. Completely. And I switch into locker room mode where basically everything between the knees and the nipples I can't see. There's just an imaginary black bar. All I see are feet and shoulders. That's all I see. Any of you who know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm glad you're never in a situation where you have to have that kind of vision, because it's just uncomfortable. But at this point, I'm just like, oh shit, what now? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And Dalton is just standing there proudly, hands on his hips, grinning to the sky because he's out in all his glory. And then suddenly, Dalton's dorm room door swings open and some dude screams, "What's going on in here?" And Amelia runs out, screaming, and some other guys on the floor. Dalton lived in a building that each floor was separated by gender, so his floor was all men. A couple of the guys catch her, sit her down, calm her down, be like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And she is sobbing and through tears manages to get out. They got naked, and which was obvious given that Dalton was proudly standing at attention. Not gonna go into detail on that one. And he walks out, doesn't care that anyone can see him. It's like, hey guys, what's going on? And they all like push him back in the room. They make a barrier between us and the doorway, which I'm gonna take a moment here to say, for the knowledge those guys had of the situation, what they knew was what they thought was going on, I think they did the right thing. They kept us separated. We're trying to get info from her. We're trying to get info from us. I think they deserve some kudos here, because they could have let her run off, laughed about it, but no, they thought we had done something we shouldn't to this poor woman, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it and make sure that whoever was in the wrong was punished. So kudos to them. I think they did the right thing, despite the fact that it was terrifying for me and could have put me in a situation that I don't want to think about. But anyway, they were like getting really aggressive against us, being like, "What were you thinking? What are you doing? That's wrong." And suddenly, the student staff member on the floor, one of my coworkers, comes to the room, is like, "What's going on?" and sees Dalton naked, sees me with my shirt off. He's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Hi, Moose." Yes, his name's Moose. We're not gonna explain that one because I don't care. That's just what his name was. And then he sees Amelia sitting in the chair in the common area, and he looks at me. He's like, "Is that the stage 5 clinger that you've been trying to get rid of?" And I'm just like, "Yep." And he looks at me, looks me in the eye, is trying his best not to look at Dalton, and is like, yeah, this wasn't the way to do it, bro. And he just gets everyone out of the room and just awkwardly closes the door. And as the door's about to shut, he says, please put your clothes on. And we do, and obviously, and then we come out of the room, and Dalton, still confused because he's oblivious, he doesn't know what they were thinking was going on. He just thought, oh, college students naked in a dorm room. What's weird about that? Uh, Amelia has been taken somewhere. I don't know where she ended up going, but the guys got her away from us. And Dalton just proudly proclaims, well, Evan, I think this is mission accomplished. I don't think she's going to bother you anymore. Grab your stuff and go home. So I do. And on the way out, Moose tells me, hey, you need to talk to your building supervisor about this before she does. Uh, just explain what happened. And he's like, if you need me to corroborate what happened, I will. And that's what I did. I went straight into the building, and it's probably 11:30 midnight at this point, so the building supervisor should be in his apartment, asleep by now, but luckily for me, he's not. He's at the front desk making a cup of coffee or something. I don't remember what he was doing. He's just eating snacks at midnight like he always does in his boxer shorts and tank top. And I'm like, hey, so took care of the stage 5 clinger. I promised nothing happened, but it kind of looked like stuff happened. And he very dramatically drops his bag of cheese crackers, hits the floor and scatters, and he just glares at me. He's like, how much paperwork do I have to fill out? So we go into his office, explain everything that I've just told you, and he just kind of slams his head on the desk. He's like, why is it always you, Evan? Why is it always you? And yeah, that pretty much explains my whole time working for him. There was always something that either I did that ended much more dramatically than I thought it would, or something was made up about me that I wasn't aware of. Uh, there were a few times where there were rumors floating around that I wasn't even aware of till well after I left college. But anyway, nothing ever came of it. Amelia didn't talk to me ever again. She'd glare at me the few times I ran into her. I felt bad, obviously, because traumatized her, scared her. I don't think she ever really understood that that's not how I meant for things to go. That I just wanted to be left alone so I could sleep. Keep in mind, this is after almost a whole week of not getting sleep. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was barely able to speak at this point. Uh, I don't know how long any of you have stayed up, but at a certain point you lose the ability to form words. And as you can probably tell, I'm barely able to do that now. So, she left me alone. The people on my floor were very thankful because she made them incredibly uncomfortable. And most of them were really sympathetic about the situation. About half the girls on the floor knew of her and had problems with her before, or knew enough about me to know that I wouldn't hurt her or wouldn't have put her in a situation where she thought she was going to get hurt. But for about 2 or 3 days after this incident, I thought I was going to get in some serious trouble. And honestly, I couldn't be upset about it because from everyone else's perspective, that was the right, like, getting me in trouble was the right thing to do. And obviously I know that that's not what I meant to do, but from what everyone else saw, it just looked like a guy trying to hurt a woman. Yeah, two guys trying to hurt a woman. And poor Dalton probably has no idea how close he came to getting kicked out of school his very first year there. Probably not a damn clue. This is probably the first, if he sees this video, the first he's going to hear about it. But it's a funny story in hindsight because I know that everything worked out for us at least. I finally heard from friends of this girl's that she's fine. Uh, she still doesn't want to have anything to do with us, but she's fine. She kind of figured out what was going on, but I don't think she fully understands. But yeah, I think it's I think it's a funny story. It's very close to not being a funny story, but most stories are like that. You know, it's kind of like a cartoon. It's really funny when the cartoon character gets punched in the face and all his teeth fall out because it's gonna grow them back. But in real life, that's horrifying because those teeth are gone forever. That's a terrible analogy. Sorry, I'm dumb. I'm not gonna re-record this because I'm 20 minutes into this ramble. But anyway, thanks for having me. Thanks for watching. I hope I get better at this because, gosh, this is a very cringy recording, but I had fun doing it. And love and knowledge to you all. And may we all walk the path of the static cat. Now it's time to go.